All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for attending another session of Revit Radio, where you ask questions and we answer them. We may not be a good answer, but we will at least attempt to answer them. So as you don't know, this is all about you asking questions. So go ahead and put your questions in the question and answer pod. And then we do have the chat pod as well. So if you want to, heckle us or, give answers to questions that we have come up as well, feel free to go ahead and jump in there and type in the webinar chat also. And hopefully that's turned on. I think I got it. Sometimes Zoom decides to shut it off. Sometimes it's on. I never know which. So with that said, we'll jump into this. And unless you had anything you wanted to start with, Desiree.
Well, Michael says he prefers to be thought of as irregular.
Well, yes, he is irregular, but that's okay. So as you know, while I'm waiting for you guys to come up with questions, and again, there's very few of you, so you need to ask some questions. I think the registration got all jacked up because it technically expired last month, and hopefully more people will register, or you guys can encourage team members to register on that. But we always like to start off with something as we get started. So one of the things I'm going to go ahead and put up in here is just talking about that. First off, if you guys weren't here, or I think it's actually been since last time, there was an update to Revit 2023, and then there was an update to the update. So technically, if you're using Revit 23, there was Revit 2023.1 that came out, and then there was a 0.1.1 service pack that they realized the 0.1 broke links with desktop connectors. So your CAD links, your point cloud links, your image links, something got broken 20.3.1. So they did open up a 23.1.1 in that. So if you're in there, there's updates, get the updates. And hopefully you're gonna all be up to speed on that. This month I actually wanted to start off while we're waiting for the questions to start talking about one of the things inside of here that I always love, that's always fun for me, is the fact that I get asked this question a lot, usually from consultants, but I also see, and I know Desiree has struggled with this, being a consultant in her previous life, getting all of the parameters that an architect wants you to have inside of their file. I know when I was working with Desiree, like I said, in her previous life, few years ago, there was one of the firms she was working with where they recorded this 20-minute YouTube video on how to get the parameters in, create the parameters, and set all of this stuff up just so we could get the sheet index to work. So I've opened up a simple file that I have for one of my clients, that this is a file that they put in. They either email out to everybody, or if it's a BIM 360 project, they put it in a shared folder for everybody to go download. But this is a file that I have set up for them, and I do this for most of my clients, that literally just has everybody open this file and it gives them instructions on how to do it. So it's one of the things that I start coming up here. So usually when this happens, people are going to have custom project or shared parameters that they want you to add to your project, not for changing data in the title blocks necessarily, but literally just for getting the sheet list to show up the way you need it to show up, right? So this particular one, I'm going to go into, oops, not there. I'm going to go over here to the project parameters up here, and I'm going to talk about this. So this is just project parameters. So this is all of the ones, all of the ones that you've got to see inside of here and start coming in and looking at. Oh, nice. We just got spammed in the webinar chat. Somebody joined in, spammed it, and then left. That's the first time that's ever happened to me.
Oh, yeah.
Huh. First time this has ever happened. We've been doing this since 2005, and it's the first time we've ever been spammed in the chat. I guess there's a first for everything. But what happens inside of here is you can see that this particular client, they have like 35, 40 different parameters in here that they need for everybody to add. Again, this is only for the parameters to, or excuse me, for the work to work in the schedules, right? So we've got 30 sheet submittals, volumes, things like that, and everything that you can come up here and get into. So I've added those parameters in here. Then you'll also see inside of here, like I said, the opening view that comes up in here is descriptions on exactly what to do this. But the other reason why I have this on here is I do then have like the drawing index as it would look if it was printed, and then also the working version of that they have when they start coming in here as well. So both of those things are in there. So the description talks about, hey, if you're in your project, you can link this into your project and transfer projects, or not even link, excuse me, you can go into the manage, go to transfer project standards. And when I do that, I can choose that file and basically say, hey, I want to transfer in all the project parameters, right? So if I come down here to project parameters, we'll go to the P's, there's a lot of P's in here. And I grab this project parameters, it will transfer all those project parameters when you go in there. The other way to do it, and I don't think I actually have this in the description because I don't, you know, some people like they can understand this, is to literally just come in and grab one of the schedules or both of the schedules and copy them to the clipboard. Then you can come over here to your legit project and go to paste. And when you do this, paste from clipboard. When you do this, it's going to put those schedules inside of that project for you. And since those parameters were part of that project, it's also going to go in and add all of those project parameters. So you can see, hey, here you go. It came across, it brought those all in there for me. I personally like to do it this way. And the reason why I like to do it this way is that I'm going to grab everything that's using that schedule, but I also like setting this file up because if you try to transfer project standards just from the architectural link, you're going to get every damn parameter they have, right? You're going to have all of that stuff come across. The other thing that this file has in it too is if you come in here to the sheet list here, and this is again is back in the transfer project, when you start coming across here and looking at this, it then also comes down and saying, look, here's all the categories for all the people. So there's placeholder sheets in this file saying, hey, if you're hazardous materials, you'll be a 02, you'll have this as HO, etc. And it just gives an example of all of those values that are supposed to be in there. The sheet instructions talks about it a little bit, but it does give everybody those examples. And you will see that when I did copy and paste the schedule, it didn't bring in all of the placeholder sheets. It didn't go through and do any of that. It did just go ahead and bring in all of the parameters needed. So yeah, this is the way I like to do it. I do have this set up, and I see Michael and Beth are both in here saying, yeah, this is a great way to do it. And Beth brought up the point too, that it's also something that if you've got an old project or a new project and you created a new standard, you can open up your template and copy schedules and paste them into your old file or file from an old template and bring in stuff that's inside of there. It's nice to have this one file that people can open and transfer project standards if that's the way they want to do it, or at least open it and copy the schedule. I don't remember what project Desiree is on, but literally the firm created like what was like a 20-minute video on how to add each parameter, and then like a 20-page Word document or something crazy.
I remember that experience. I do not remember the project or the client of ours, which is probably good. But yes, it was like, and the problem with it that I had, if I remember correctly, is they just sent that to all the people working on the project. And in my role, I didn't necessarily get that. They just sent it right to like the PM, who then shared it out. And it was like, no, hold on. Let's not do that. So you've got
the worst part is I've had people try to do it that way as well. And when they go create the project parameter, and this was an example for this particular client who has this beautiful thing. When I look at the project parameters there, the ones that's called like grouping, when you modify this one and you go look at it, oops, brought up my other screen. This was done as a text parameter, and somebody, or not the grouping, I think the sorting. One of them they do as a number parameter, and somebody went in and created it as a text parameter, and they were putting the numbers in, but every time we'd open it and say, oh, something has an invalid truncated number, we need to fix that, or the schedule just wouldn't work. So by doing it this way, you don't worry about where the people, if they've created it as the right type of text value or whatever else you might need, it's just going to go ahead and be there.
Right. So you've got a question that is on the same topic from Bud. It says, have you had a chance to look into the parameter service just released by Autodesk? Haven't had a chance to look into it all, but curious what you think. Was hoping it would make sharing parameters with consultants easier, or adding shared parameters to existing families internally easier.
I've been on the beta for about 1.5 years now, and I refuse to use it. So what he's talking about is if I go to the Manage tab, I'm on the wrong tab. If I go to the Manage tab, there's a new thing in Revit 2023 called Parameter Service. This was actually out in Revit 22, might even have been in 21, I don't remember. But it was this thing. So the theory of the parameter service is, if you're in a project, you can upload all of like your parameters up there. They're going to have to be shared parameters, but you could load all of your shared parameters up into your BIM 360 projects or your BIM 360 accounts. And then anybody, you can share that with anybody, and then they can go start bringing those down. I do not need to be for them. I think I did it with this client. We'll see if this client has it. I know I did mine too. There we go. Here's mine. The downside to this that I really don't like is I'm just going to come up here and you can see I can create a new parameter here. Sure, whatever. I have to choose here if this is type or instance based. So as I'm using the new Autodesk parameter service, and again, you'll see it looks very similar to your like, hey, it's going to be a length parameter. I want the description. I want to go ahead and say, where is it going to be grouped? Just like you can start seeing what we're dealing inside of there. The name is up here. You know, this is my test. When I start setting this up and I start adding it to things, like for me, I have my code fire rating parameter. On certain types of things in Revit, it's a type, and on other things, it's an instance based. But here, you're determining its type or instance within the parameter definition. So if I'm trying to come up through here and get this set up, it's like, oh, okay, I don't want this one to be either or. Like I have generic length parameters that I use. In some of my families, it's instance, and some of them it's type. But if I have to determine here when creating this parameter service value, completely will not work for me, because now I'm gonna have to have length instance and length type, and that's going to be the name of it. That's just crazy stupid for me when you start doing it. And again, the whole theory of this is that it's going to be in the cloud, so you can share this with anybody on a project. So like I think their thinking is, oh, we might have particular shared parameters for this project that everybody's going to need to start seeing. Everybody's going to start being able to pull down for their particular project. So we're all in the same shared parameter file. I think they're also, their other theory is, oh, then like a manufacturer who's got shared parameters, they could host it up here too. And if you wanted to create something else using their same shared parameter, you could just go in and download it. Of course, you could always export out a shared parameter. So yeah, I haven't done anything with this that much, because to me, the fact that this is type-based or instance-based is pretty much a no-go for me. Once you set it up, you also have the capability in here to import. So if you want to, you can actually come in here and grab your shared parameter file, or you can say, hey, let me pull out all the parameters out of this active model. This is one to me that I was kind of trying to play around with, and I don't remember what the result was. I did this in one project just to see what it would do. It's like, hey, let me create one for this project. Let me say the active model, upload parameters. Well, let's just do it here and see. And it'll start pulling through those parameters for you. Now, again, the thing to me that's weird about this is if it wasn't determined, which a shared parameter file isn't, I think it made all of them instance-based. So yeah, so you can see that okay, these are all the out-of-the-box Autodesk ones that get added, which cracked me up, with the exception of these. But so it instantly makes them instance-based when you start looking at this. So it's not going to say, oh, it needed to be type, even if in your families you all had them as type properties. It's going to come in here and start saying it's instance-based. Ooh, that's interesting. This one doesn't say type or instance. Yep. So it freaked out because it did not know if this one is instance or type. Really bizarre. Didn't come up with that one. But so that was my only theory, is it could be a really, really, really nice way for those people who don't have an add-on utility just to get a list of all the parameters that they have inside of their project. You will see that these are also only the shared parameters, right? So if I came back in here and looked at the project parameters, the actual project parameters, if we look at this one, it truly is only a project parameter, not a shared parameter. The project parameters don't get exported. So it's going to give you a list of only what's there available to you as a shared parameter. So yeah, it's there. I haven't found a use for it. I know that's kind of the theory Autodesk has on it. But that's kind of all. It's like, yeah, not really sure. And until they get rid of that instance type scenario, not going to work for me in 90% of my families. And I also keep sitting there wondering how it's going to work if I even tried to use it or bring it back into like one of my families that's already created. Like, is it giving it a new unique GUI number? I haven't played around enough with it too much to play with it. And honest truth, I haven't seen Autodesk develop it a lot since it came out in 2021. Yeah, and Bud's like, yeah, I'm not going to use it if it has to be type or instance based.
Well, maybe I'm being a little bit myopic here in my own personal experiences, but how many shared parameters or project parameters even need to be shared across models, especially if you're talking about across discipline. Like say maybe see like sub-consultants or something like that, but outside of some very specific examples, when are we really doing this?
Yeah, no, that was kind of my point to Autodesk as well on the whole thing. Wow, sorry, I'm watching World Cup as I'm talking here, and there was just 2 goals scored in 2 minutes. Um, that was kind of my thing to Autodesk too, is like really on a project, when am I sharing a parameter with structural to architect MEP? And their point was you might have multiple mechanical consultants or multiple electrical consultants where they may need to have families that have the same parameter in them. The only other thought I had too is in some projects that I've worked on, like airports, they have specific, hey, here's the parameters you must use in all of our projects, and every element must get this parameter assigned to it. So in that case, it might be worth it. But again, I might want that parameter as a type parameter from my type of family, but you might want that as an instance for your type of family. So having it in there really made no sense to me in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, Michael says he thinks it came out in 2022.1. I couldn't remember 22.1 or 20.1. I've had it for a very long time, which if it was 22.1, it'd be over a year. I just remember I've played with it and I've had multiple discussions with Autodesk on it. And I'm like, yeah, you'll never get me to use it there. The other thing behind the story behind it is it's also with the whole, used to be called Forge. Now it's called what? Forma?
Sure.
With the whole Forge/Forma platform, this is their way to kind of be able to allow other people to extract the data that you might have in yours. So if you got somebody in Inventor or SolidWorks and they're trying to extract that data, they could pull in theoretically somehow the same data value and it would link that together as well.
Okay, sure. Maybe. Okay, want to stop talking about parameters?
Oh, okay, whatever.
There's
I'm
one
looking at
more.
all the chat. I didn't get all the chat, so I was just trying to catch up.
Oh, yep.
And Augustina says they'd had to cross use them on a project for manufacturing where all the models were owned and coordinated. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, for me, I don't know. It's just another irritating button that I wish I could pull off of the ribbon. Kind of like on the insert tab, which I know you can through the INI. I want to get this stupid Loto Autodesk family out of there too, which you can actually do in the INI file.
Well, Chris asked.
All right, so we've only got one other question going on so far. So we do need some more questions, or you guys are going to get to hear me cheer on for the World Cup. So just saying.
I've been hearing that for a while.
Yeah, I think Desiree's about tired of the World Cup going. I still have another week and a half. No.
Oh, I'm not tired of it. I know when somebody scores because I can hear you from down here. All right, so Chris asks, is there a way to do a preset publish schedule in ACC?
Yeah, publish schedule. Yeah, so in Autodesk Construction Cloud, it's funny you say that, Chris, because I know you can do it if you are using not model coordination, if you're using the design collaboration. I don't ever use the design collaboration, so I was literally going to Google this today. So Chris, if you find it, go ahead and email me when you find the answer or the link or whatever. But yes, in BIM 360, you could set it up. And in Autodesk Construction Cloud, if you have the design collaboration set up where you're publishing, where you're creating packages, etc., then you can set up the automatic scheduling of the publishing. I was going to try play around today for me, where I was going to go turn on the design collaboration for me and then tell it to go publish the models and then just not assign any of the users to design collaboration. So for me, I was playing with it this morning before I had Civil Chat. I came in here to every single user and turned off design collaboration for all of those users because I want to go in and turn it on for this project for myself as the admin, and then see if I could start going in and getting that auto publish to set up. Because yeah, it was really easy to do in BIM 360. And the only place I have found it in Autodesk Construction Cloud is in the design collaboration tab. So haven't got there, really trying to figure it out. So like I said, oops, sorry, it wasn't Chris who said that. It was Augustina who said that. If you do find it, let me know. because yeah, I have no idea. And I was literally, that was one of my tasks to figure out today, because I keep getting tired of everything not being published.
No, you had it right the first time. I cleared out that question.
Oh,
Um,
oh, cool.
Keeping myself organized here. I know it's been a while since I've been your helper. Christina asks, have you used the Revit cloud model upgrade? Client wants to do it 2 days before submitting, going from 20 to 22. I know you've done this. I've done this. So if I've done it, you've done it.
Yeah, I do it all of the time. The one thing that I will say, all coordination, nope, I got to go back to docs. If I come up here to docs, this is where you're going to actually find it in the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So crazy to me how it's in one location for one person or one thing, and a location for the other one. But under docs, under settings, you'll see you have the Revit Cloud model upgrade here. It will go in and start checking for all of the models that you want to be upgrading. There is also a test upgrade. You can run the test upgrade. I always run the test upgrade. The reason why I run this test upgrade is A, it's going to tell me what the current release was and then what it's going to upgrade to, but it'll let me start going through the warnings and look at the warnings. Now, when you go through there and do it, what it's going to do is on the files, under docs, under files, it's going to create a new folder. And it is a stupid zip file that you do have to go download. I wish they would just let me see it right here. It's a stupid XML. I don't know why I can't just view it online, but they force you to download this zip file. And then I do go download this one. I think I still have it in my temp folder. Let me go see. Uh-oh. Mine have gotten rid of it. Looks like I got rid of it, so I'll go download it again real quick. But if you do come in here and look at this, what you're going to actually see is what it's doing is, come on, where's download? Download. What it's going to actually do is give you the, yes, temp, cool, report of all the issues. Now, I always tell people before you try to upgrade, you said 2 days, you might not have the time for this, but before you try to go upgrade this thing when you're looking at it, is go through the warnings in Revit first, because what you're going to see inside of here is there's 26 warnings or 15 warnings or 32 warnings, or in this case, 157 warnings. Most of these you look at, these are literally the Revit warnings. So if you go into Revit and you look at your warnings, that is the majority of what these are going to be, is the Revit warnings. If I come down here to the architectural one, because this is my client here, I know their file. Yes, I know these are their warnings. Oh, slightly off axis. Elements are duplicate on top of each other. There's an issue with the family. These warnings, the majority of the time, you can just ignore. And if you go to something like the mechanical file, it's electrical, where's the mechanical? The mechanical files are usually going to be, oh, yes, there's no tap attached to this duct. Those are not that big of a deal. The bigger one is usually if it tells you it's an error, sometimes the error is like, oh, this is an error. And a lot of times it's, I've got to delete this element. So here, it's not just the fact that there's no tap, but it is going to delete that element. So usually you're just going to get it. You're going to get warnings on all of these. The warnings, like I said, the majority of the time were warnings coming out of the Revit warnings dialog box. Is really where you're looking at the errors to say, oh, this one element's going to get deleted. So you can go fix it before you upgrade the project, or you can just be like, cool, whatever, we'll figure out which duct isn't, which tap isn't there, or which duct went away, and we're good with that. So completely up to you, but yes, always run that error report first. And when you start getting into it, you can then make the permissions for everybody to see this, and it's not that big of a deal. Depending on the size of the project will depend on how long it takes to upgrade. I've had some projects upgrade in 15 minutes. I've had some projects upgrade in 5 hours. So it depends on how many Revit files are just going to find inside of there, what's going on with those Revit files, the warnings, size of the files, etc. It's going to go through and upgrade it. I always usually run it like, 6 o'clock Eastern time, or excuse me, in Pacific time, when nobody's probably going to be in the file. And I just got to reiterate that when you run the upgrade, no one should be in the file, because it can cause issues, etc. That's it. That's all you do. And it's really not that big of a deal. You hit once you've known it's done, and once you've run the thing and you tell everybody you're gonna do it, once it finds that you hit upgrade the model, it's 5 minutes worth of work for you. The person who tells it to upgrade will get an email saying we started, and when it's done, you'll get an email saying it's done. Like I said, the majority of my projects have happened less than 30 minutes. I have had one take 4 or 5 hours, which is why I do every single one of them at late at night. So that way I'm not worried about taking anybody's time up. The only other thing that I will say is personally for me, when I do this, most of my clients in their file naming conventions, they have like the version of Revit in there. So like most of them, it's like, hey, this is the architectural, it's in Revit 22. This is mechanical in 22. I go rename all of these. So if I'm the admin doing it, I go rename, because with BIM 360, you can rename these files. And if you rename it, it doesn't affect the users. I like to go through, once I get the email saying the upgrade has been done, I go through and just rename all those files. So anybody trying to open it will see it says, oh, it's now in 23. So that's me. But yeah, it's very simple to do. It's literally a click of a button. Just run the test first. I don't know. Has anybody else had any issues? I mean, I know when we went from 16 to 17, it was a big caution because that's when they changed the text editor. All I can say is, I think you said in the original question from 20 to 22. If that's the case, just talk to the structural engineers, because if they were using the analytical information in 20, it will be changed in 22. I know of 0 structural engineers actually using the analytical information in Revit, so I haven't been too concerned about this. But in the event you've got one of those rare structural engineers who do that, just do be aware that that could cause issues for them.
Would you do one version at a time or just do one big jump?
Yeah, you can do one version at a time. I just do one big jump. I don't worry about it. During the test, oops, that's not what I wanted. When you're in that little folder that says test upgrade, you can actually change it. If you were on like 20, you can say what version do you want to upgrade to, and it will let you test it and change it that way. If you're going to go from 20 to 22, personally, I think you should be going to 23. But if you were, I just do the jump. There's not been enough that's changed anything. I have not seen since 16 to 17. I haven't seen any issues upgrading models. The other thing I always tell everybody to do too, and you can do this as the admin doing, but I tell everybody to go in and publish all their models first. I publish all of them, because even if you upgrade a project, when you come back here to like all the files and you start looking at the files, you will be able to see that you have all the versions there. So it's going to tell me this is version 33. And if something did happen, I could go download the old 2022 version. So if somebody's like, oh my God, I upgraded this to 23 and it deleted 50 things, at the very least, you could come down here and download the one that you published right before you upgraded. And then you can go in and, you know, copy paste, do whatever you need to do on those, or at the very least open it up and see what that ID number was that got deleted. So yeah, I always go through and do a publish all, and the only reason is then I can come through here and do this.
And you don't have any more questions, so I guess they want you to tell them what's going on with the soccer game.
Portugal 5, Switzerland 1. Pretty sure Portugal is going to advance. So for those of you watching the recording, you'll obviously know what time I was playing this game or watching this, doing this webcast. The other thing I do want to talk about, and since this came up, since there are no questions, and I don't know if anybody's actually doing this and got this set up, and as I show you on screen in there, I am going to close my projects here and get another project opening as we're discussing this. I'm in Revit 23. This one might have it set up, but I don't want to go open up Revit 22 to do this. So that one definitely would not, that would not, that would not. Oh, this one does. We'll do that one. So what I was going to show you in the BIM 360 beautiful platform here, and I don't know if you guys have used this. I turn model coordination on for every single one of my projects. By show of hands, how many people are using the model coordination in BIM 360? Cool. Either everybody fell asleep from me talking or nobody's using it. So the model coordination.
Nobody could find the raise hand button fast enough.
Oh, Beth says she definitely hasn't used it. Michael is using it. Cool. So for me, this is something that I set up on every project. And what I always like to call the model coordination, if you're in BIM 360, you should just use it, period. But what I always call this is clash detection. It's Navisworks for the designers, right? And the reason why I say it's Navisworks for the designers is it's not as powerful as Navisworks. It's not going to go through and do what you need to do as it would with Navisworks, but it's all automatic if you're in BIM 360. Once a model is published, so you can see on here, I published all the models for this particular client last night at 5:30 my time. Actually, it was like 4:30, and then it took an hour to run. But it then goes through and runs the checks. Now, how I do this, and I do this a little bit different than a lot of other people, I don't rely on everybody else's files. Whoever's in charge of the hub, set those files up to have views where I'm only seeing specific things inside of it. So this particular client, it's the architect, and in their file, there are a whole bunch of views that say BIM 360. And in those BIM 360 views, you can see I've got one that is literally the only thing turned on in that view are architectural ceilings. I've then got one that's like, oh, here's got the duct work for all the MEP stuff. But the MEP here, I only turn on air terminals and flex ducts. And the reason why I set it up this way is the model coordination. The downside to it is if you just say, hey, I'm going to go through and look at the entire folder, or you have like the shared folder, and I'm going to run everything from the shared folder. I'm relying on everybody to publish. Sure, once we figure out the publish tool that was asked earlier, it's not as big a deal. But B, I'm relying on people to maintain the visibility of those views. And I kept finding that when I was relying on everybody else, people were going in and messing with the views, turning things on and off, adding the linked files, whatever it's going to be. So for me, I set one up, even though this is the architect, I go in and I have one that's just got the power stuff on. I've got one that's got plumbing, one just piping, one just lighting. And I don't think this particular project yet did. So here's structure, where it's just got foundations and slabs. And here's one for framing. And then here's one for structural columns. So in that file, and you'll kind of see I've done this in my little structural model here, I've got all these views that are set up to literally just be for BIM 360. So if I come up here in my 3D views, you'll see I've got one that is literally all I have turned on are structural columns. All I have turned on are structural foundations, et cetera, et cetera. So in every single one of these, I've went in and set up views to see what I want to see. That might entail me having filters to turn things on and off. Like, oh, I wanted to see not all the structural framing, but not certain other types of structural framing, right? So I've got everything in the link turned off. I've got structural framing that is concrete, turned off, et cetera. So I've got all these different filters and rules, but literally in these views, this is all I want to see, and I name them accordingly. Then in your Collaborate tab, you have the publish settings. So when you publish the BIM 360, in the publish settings, whatever set is checked is what it's going to publish when you publish the BIM 360. If nothing's set, it pretty much tries to publish, I think, only your 3D model. But for this publish, I've got, the specific 3D views. In this case, in this particular project, I've got a lot of 3D views, and then all the sheets, etc. Right? So I set up a sheet set, a publish set, whatever you want to call it. They call them print sets, sheet sets. They've got like 5 different names for them. But I set up one that I want and I check it. So now anytime it's published, those are the views that start to happen. So back in the model coordination over here, you'll see that only thing I'm telling it in this architectural file to publish, they're not, besides sheets, are these particular views that are there. What's cool is once those views are set up and the first time you publish, now I can start coming in here and looking like, oh, gee, if I start looking at the architectural ceilings and I compare those to plumbing, I have 6 clashes. But if I look at the architectural ceilings to the ductwork, I have 215 clashes, right? So this is the reason why I break it down. If I just did like the architectural model to the structural model, all the floors in the structural model would be clashes. All the columns are in the walls, they would be clashes. So I start to try to break this down to more legit clashes that we might want to be looking at, right? And in my architectural model, I don't have things on like furniture. I don't care about furniture clashing. It's something that's movable. So even in the architectural model, I have a whole bunch of different things turned off, right? But if I then just come click over here on the ceilings to the plumbing, why do I have 6 clashes with ceilings to plumbing? I can click on it and it's going to automatically open up what I think is a beautiful viewer. I use Navisworks as well. I love the Navisworks tools. This is just such a better interface. It's such more easy, more user-friendly. Anybody can do it. We can start seeing what's going on. Now you'll see that when I open up the viewer, it dims out the entire project with the exception of the clashes you see inside of here. And if I click one of them, it then starts coming in here and saying, oh, look, this ceiling is clashing with 9 other objects. So there are 9 ball valves inside of here that I'm clashing with. Right? So now I can just kind of come in here and say, oh yeah, there's a ball valve running through here. Probably have some issues with that going on. Right? So now we need to know, lower the ceiling, move the pipe, whatever it's going to be. You can go through and start assigning issues. You can set up issues. You can assign it to people. For me, it's just usually like, hey guys, let's get together on a team meeting. Everybody has rights to this. Go look at those clashes and just try to fix them. If you fix them, they disappear automatically. So if you go fix all the clashes, you republish your model, an hour later, they're going to disappear out of the clash report. So I don't know. To me, it's one of those things that's great. I use this even internally in a lot of my own stuff. So like that other sample thing, I'm actually going to come over here. I'm going to go switch to that one I was actually showing you. Come on. I'll switch to this, showing you the structural model in the background here. I'll go over to my model coordination. And you'll see in here, this one literally is going to the shared folder because we are truly using design collaboration on this project. So I've got a whole bunch of different files inside of here, right? When I go to clashes, I don't want to see all 41 models. So you can start coming through here and saying, yeah, okay, I don't need to see, I don't care about the architect's stairs or anything that's posted in the shared folder. So you might have a ton of stuff in a folder, which again, this is why I don't do it this way. I like to come in here and say, okay, we're looking for just certain files, right? But even then, I might come in here and hide all of them. I might just use this for my own structural tools. So if I come down here just to my structurals, like, man, do I have any problems with my structural framing and my walls, or my structural framing and my structural columns? I now am only going to see those 3 models rather than all 45 files that were in there or whatever it was. And now it's going to say, ooh, I have 16 clashes between columns and structural framing. I want to know what those are. So I use this internally as well. Start breaking the architectural file down into specific views. Like, and everybody always laughs at me. One of them I have are ceilings versus stairs. Do I have any ceilings modeled in my stairwells? So I can start coming in here and going, oh, you know, when I auto laid out my K-series joists, some of them are hitting the columns. Still doable. They put a little plate in there. I'm not too worried about that. I can kind of ignore those. Or I could come in here and select that particular clash, whichever one it's going to be, and say, this is not a clash, it's actually acceptable. So ways to go through and set that up. And all of that can be going through and getting it all done, set up, working pretty well. So I don't know, again, this is all automatic. There's no setup for you guys, with the exception of setting up views in your Revit file, but there's none of the like Navisworks clashes, etc. You don't have to do any of that. So for me, most of my clients and their templates, we have all of these 360 views already set up. Well, I still am calling it BIM 360, even though it's Autodesk Construction Cloud now. Maybe I should just call it Z model coordination. Who knows? But I have this set up in all of their templates. So literally, all they've got to do anytime they start a new project is just make sure that the published settings are correct, and then make sure that they have the appropriate links set up inside of those files. Because in all my clients' templates, we have links that are in there that they just do a reload from for the new links. Because if they inserted a link from scratch, then that link from scratch, you'd have to go through and turn things on and off. So not a huge deal, but just wanted to bring that up as you start looking at it. So kind of what I have going on there also with the BIM 360 stuff. And I see a question popped up. So
I know, I think Chris is taking pity on you because this is definitely a up your alley question.
Yeah, so I think it's, well, and I think on a lot of this stuff too, you know, like Beth said, she's hoping people use it, have used it a little bit, tried, nobody's really used it. Again, even if for nothing else, it's just a visual to start seeing what's going on. And this particular project here is a project I was working on with the MEP and architects. And yeah, originally it was like, wow, the plumber, the piping guy ran all the pipes underneath the K-series joists. Structure on this project, FYI. But then he didn't realize that there were some of these beams in the middle of the column, so they were running through all of them, and just told him, he's like, oh, that's easy, just shift them all down 2 inches. Cool. So it's kind of a nice thing, you know, just to visually see what's going on rather than trying to go through sections in a Revit model, going through all of that craziness. Yeah, I'd much rather just get a visualization this way to start seeing what's going on. Cool. All right, let's get to some of those questions then.
All right. So thoughts, tips to reference detail views. I wonder if it's specifically detail views, like live detail views, or just drafting views, maybe.
Now I see what by you saying that Chris was asking a question right
like
up my alley.
Top 3 topics. So call it view references, etc., from one project to another. Multiple buildings, campus projects, I'm assuming, things like that.
So
Drafting
how
views.
I do this is not drafting views. You followed up with drafting views on this, Chris. I don't do it as drafting views, and I'm going to go in and open up a very probably old file that's going to have to be upgraded. In Revit, when you've got a file linked in, one of the things you can do in the Revit links tab is you can go find that file, and rather by saying by host view, you can say by linked view. The linked views you can do are going to be views of the same type. So other plan views, other 3D views, other section, elevation, etc. So for me, when I do all of my details are done in plan view if it's a horizontal detail, in a section if it's a vertical detail. So like if I'm doing a door jamb detail, that's done in a plan view. If I'm doing a door head detail, that's done in a section view. Now, the reason why I do this is now I can link in a detail file. That detail file is going to be linked in just like any other Revit file. If I make a change to that detail in the detail file and I've got it linked into 6 different buildings, it updates automatically in all 6 buildings. Once I do that, I then have, and sorry, I thought I was opening that file, I forgot to. Once I do that, then I have the capability to go in and, I can't remember where this is. Probably under conferences somewhere. When was the last time I talked about this? I'm gonna go open it this way. I'm gonna go search for it. Yeah, go away. BD Mackie conferences link. Oh, I was opening this. There we go. So let me just go ahead and open up this file. Hey, I even have a building B20. I even have it in 23 format. Look at that. Cancel this. Yeah, so it's funny because Augustina came in and saying she's never thought of this. I had a client, and I came up with this back in, I think it was 2005 or 6. They only did like strip malls. So literally every building's the same, but every building has its own set of construction documents. So the entire strip mall might have 20 buildings, but they're all the exact, or majority of them are the same details, with the exception of maybe an entrance or whatever, but they all got issued in separate packages. So this is how we came up with it. So you'll see that if I come inside of here and start looking at this, that here's my floor plan details. I just say what the scale is. And then in this detail, just like I normally would do, here's my scale for that detail, right? There's specific types of details. I just try to organize them as different types of details. Like, hey, this is an outside corner detail. This is going to be the same damn detail in a different area. I don't know why I did that. But kind of started coming through here when you get into this and you start setting it up, right? Then in the actual building file, what I end up doing in the building file is I create a floor plan view called details. I then link this view into it. And I don't create a separate detail or a separate plan view for each detail in my detail file. I have one floor plan for each scale. Some of my clients are no. I do one floor plan for door details, one floor plan for column details. However you want to organize it, I just think that's just too many views to be working with. For me, you can kind of see inside of here, I just have different areas to start going through and creating those details. So we go through, we draw those details in this one plan view. Then in each building file, I create a plan view that I say reference that view in. I then create a dependent view of every single one of those details. Now, the beauty of this is this door detail can be on any sheet in any given file. They don't have to be the same. So in one file, I could have it on sheet A600. In the next project, I could have it on sheet A601. However, the details are still going to update if I come back into this detail file and do it in the detail file, right? And I'm waiting for this project to open. Is it asking me a question? Is that why we're waiting? Nope. It was 23. It should be opening. I feel like it's just waiting for a dialog box, but no. Okay, so that's what starts going through and happening when we look at this. Now, some people hate this, and I do have a whole AU session on this. If you do nested details in AU, you'll get the whole presentation up there. But some people don't like doing this because like, man, no, I always wanted to be detail 1 on sheet 601. And if that's the case, you're going to have to coordinate that. But the beauty of this is too, is in a scenario like this, I can have all 200 details on here. And if building A only uses 20 of them, I only do 20 dependent views for the ones that are going to go onto the sheet. If building B is 50, then I do the 50 for building B, etc. It's just the way I do this. The other thing that I love about this is the fact that it doesn't bog your file down. So I have clients who do very large projects, and as everybody's ever seen in Revit, you start adding detail components, you're going to add 600 detail item families to your project. The project starts slowing down. So I have a client who they don't ever do multiple building projects. They just do large buildings. This is how every single one of their projects are done, right? Their template has, they have a detail template, which has actually all of their indicative details in there. All their standard details are done in there. They have them all organized. It's all set up. When a project starts, they copy that to the project startup folder. And then each project has a copy of the details into it. Then they manipulate the details in there for their project, and then they link it into their one building file. And that one building file, then they do has a template in it already set up with all the dependent views in it. I really don't know why this is stuck at 15%. This is really bizarre. Oh, it's probably because I have the file open. There it goes. Oh, it's been moved or copied. I say it should have opened right away. Yeah. No. What happens when you move to a new laptop and the drive letters change. But so this is the file you can see in here. So in here, I have the view called floor plan details 1.5 inches. It shows all of the views in here, right? Yeah, I can't do anything in here because I did that. But then inside of here, I create, and the only reason I did dependent views is just because it keeps it organized a little bit nicer. But then I have a dependent view of each one of those details. So each one of those little grids has a dependent view around it, right? And this can be set up in your template. You can then see, if you look at here, this one's called Jam Detail Exterior, zoom to fit. So if things have moved or that's not the right view, I'm not sure. But start coming through here and getting that set up so you can see all of these. And then I can just drag those views, those dependent views, onto the sheet, the detail bubbles and everything start to work out. So long-winded version of that, Chris. Like I said, it is on AU if you wanted to go search the AU. I presented this at, I think, AU, Midwest University, a lot of different places. It works really, really well. And like I said, my one client does this on every project because they don't want the 400 details, detail items, 500 detail items in their projects slowing the actual building file down when they're doing all of this. And unfortunately, there's no way to put all of this stuff on a work set because it's view specific and each view is its own work set. So that's how this client does it, to do it. There are add-ins out there to do this. I know Parallax has an add-in for this.
One came up in the chat, View AQC.
View AQC, don't know what that one is. The nice part about this, and like I said, there's pros and cons to doing it this way, but the nice part about this one is it's all native to Revit. Nobody has to learn anything. You're not paying for an add-in utility. It's its own separate file. And I know, like, I think the one Parallax has is it actually just copies and pastes the detail in. And if it says that the original one's updated, I go and recopy and delete it and recopy and paste or whatever. And again, the theory on mine is the nice part about it is it's not slowing the project down. And the other reason why this client uses it, I used to have an employee there that would just jack models up. He was an old AutoCAD user. And anytime he got into doing details, he'd start deleting things he didn't want to see, which were building model objects. And so they're like, yep, we're done. We're stopping that. Or he'd update the definition of something like, nope. So they stopped that by just saying, okay, here, you can go work in the detail file. We don't care what you do. And even then, you know, they could just draw lines, do whatever they need to do in that file. So hopefully that made sense, Chris.
It does. There is a little bit of a learning curve with this. It feels uncomfortable the first time you're getting in and doing it. But if you were repeating this over and over, it's a good solution.
Yeah, and the key thing I forgot to show you, oh, the link's not loaded, is again, inside of here, I've said, oh, here's the nested detail file, which I've got to reload the updated version. But instead of by link, you know, by host view, I change it to by link view and I choose the whichever matching one it has. So in here, it was like, oh, let me grab the plan details 1.5 inches. So for me, it was kind of to alleviate some of the confusion is when you're doing the plan details, you know, give a name here called plan details and give a name here called plan details. I called the details plan. I did it slightly different just so I would know which file I was in when I was looking at the view names, because I was in there going, oh, wait, no, well, this one says parent, so whatever. The other thing about this too that was really, really weird is in one of my clients who was doing this, they linked in the building origin to origin, which was fine, but the building was actually being modeled at like a 10 degree, so it wasn't horizontal on the view. And so when they cut their section, they had to cut the section not parallel to the building, but parallel to the view that was linked in. So since then, in my linked details file, I have in plan view somewhere added like reference planes I don't remember where, but I've started adding reference planes. So when you link it in, you can actually see a reference plane, or maybe it was a grid line. I don't remember what I did, but so when you link it in, at least you can see where it's coming in. And then the plan view, it doesn't matter. But when I create that section to start doing all of them, I put them right on that grid line. So I knew these sections were right on the grid line. Because the other problem is if in your linked building, you cut a section, and let's say the section was drawn here, and you cut a section in your building file right here and look the opposite direction, you're not going to see it. So I did go in and put like a couple little indicators of, hey, here's a grid line. I think I created a custom grid with like arrows letting you know, like, hey, this is the direction the section should, where it should be cut, and the view it should be looking at. But no, it works extremely well. It's a little bit confusing, but like I said, I've got 4 or 5 clients. They do this on every single project, regardless if it's 1 building or 15 buildings. This is just the way they've done it, and they really like how it works.
Okay. One more question. Pros and cons of creating new projects in BIM 360 versus Autodesk Construction Cloud.
So yeah, as we go back here and look at this, if I were to come over here and start looking at one of my projects, or if I come down here to the, I always forget where it is, where's the entire project list? Oh, here it works. You can kind of start to see as I'm looking and scrolling through my projects here, the B's are the BIM 360s, and the little globe here is Autodesk Construction Cloud. They are different. The original reason when they were different is the Autodesk Construction Cloud worked with the app that Autodesk acquired, I think, from PlanGrid when they acquired PlanGrid. And so the PlanGrid app worked better with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, which worked with all of the like issue tracking and all the stuff they have inside of here. The BIM 360 worked with the Autodesk BIM 360 app. So like if you ever wanted to be on site viewing it, it depended which app you had to open to see what was going to happen in the files. None of my clients are doing that. So honest truth for you on a day-to-day usage, not that big of a deal between the differences. I just know that they're not developing BIM 360 as much as they're developing the Autodesk Construction Cloud, because the Autodesk Construction Cloud is looking more to the Forma platform. And I believe BIM 360 is built on top of the Forge platform. There are some nuances in the code programming, et cetera, behind the scenes. So for me, any new project happening, I just do on the Autodesk Construction Cloud. With that said, if you also don't have this set up, I'm just going to come up here to account admin. Also, with that said, you can also create templates inside of here. So you'll see that if I come in here and look at project templates, my client has an ACC template. And what a lot of people don't know is if I wanted to go create a new project, let's go back to projects, and you say, hey, create new project, you can choose what template you're going to be using. So you choose the account, you choose the project, and then the template. The template can have users and permissions, users, folders, and permissions via roles all pre-set up in the template. So for any of my clients I do this for, when I come in here and create this and I say this, it's automatically added all of those folders. So if I go back to close this, go here back to docs, but not in this project because this is not my project. This is, we'll go here. So when I create a project, I literally just say, go create a project. All of the folders are created here. This one just says project name. All of the folders are here, everything's set up. And when you look at this and I go into permissions, all of the permissions are automatically already set up, including by roles. So all of the roles can be set up in your template. So you go create it. And this is true for BIM 360 as well. We just got a little bit more tools we can do here in the template. So all of the roles are already pre-set up. So this project is done. Once I start adding members to this project and I give the members a role, permissions are already set up. I also like to add company names, and by those then company names, if I go back into the files, I then add folder control for each company that's going to be taking care of it. So after we start adding users and I come in here and look at permissions, each one of the companies, I then add full folder permissions, full managed positions for their folder. So the template's nice. You can set this up. I've just created everything in Autodesk Construction Cloud template because, you know, eventually Autodesk will be like, okay, we're done with BIM 360. Like if you were using Revit 18 or older, you're still on the old A360 site, right? At some point in time, they said, yeah, we're done with A360. It's got to be done in BIM 360. And I'm assuming at some point in time, they'll be like, okay, we're done with BIM 360. You've now got to add new projects to the ACC. So yeah, but do understand you can set up project templates in there. Those templates can even include users. So one of my it's a small firm. Everything's on ACC. They have 7 users. I create the project. All 7 of their users are automatically there with roles. So hopefully that answers the question.
I think so.
Yeah.
A360.
And I see Michael saying he's having issues with Revit 23 deployments. Deployments, I actually have issues with deployments in 23 this year. What I had issues were with 23.1. The 23.1 upgrade goes back to looking for the original install. And I have a new laptop. I didn't realize I had a smaller hard drive when I purchased it, oversight on my part. So I've been cleaning things out, like all the Autodesk deployments and everything I do. And if you clean it out, then you go to install the patch or the new 0.1 release. It's like, oh, I can't install this. I can't find the original install. Actually, it's just looking for the original INI. So you have to keep copying and download it. So it's kind of a bum and a known issue that's happening in 23.1. I think the 23.1.1 hotfix fixed it, but I'm not sure.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, I was reading the Twitter feed that went out between a whole bunch of people on 23.1. I can't install because I had the same issue. And I used to have this in the past too. The old versions of Autodesk stuff, you could not get rid of the install, otherwise it wouldn't do any of the service packs or hotfixes. And I have a couple minutes left. I just did also want to point out here, I don't know if everybody knows this, but when you start looking at files on BIM 360 or A360, you can open up that file. And even if you only have view permission, so like if you're a structural engineer, you can't see the architect's file, or the architect file in Revit, you can't open up the structural engineer's file. One of the beautiful things on this should have an entire building in it. Come on, 3D. There we go. One of the things that I love about this that a lot of people don't know is, depending on if you're in BIM 360 or A360, or where you are, if you're in design collaboration or not, there's either a button down here that says compare, or there's a button up here that says compare. What's great about this is I can choose to compare version 33 to version 32 or 35 or 30 or whatever version I want to compare it to. I can choose which view in the model I want to go compare this to. BIM 360 Arch. Would have thought that would have been first. Maybe that one didn't exist in this version, but there it is. And then when I hit the compare button, it will let you see what's changed from one version to the next, and it'll display it on screen for you. So to me, this is a huge tool. I'm always getting structural engineers, man, the architect, or even MEP engineer, architect keeps moving stuff. They have no idea what they've moved. I have no idea. Well, yeah, you do. You just come in here. So the removed will show you everything they deleted. So in this particular project, these are all the things that got deleted. So guess what, MEP, you now get to start yelling at them that they deleted the walls you had, your light fixtures on, whatever. Here I can see that they deleted the wall and then put a new one in its place. So I should have a conversation with this client. Or I can come in and just say, oh, what did they modify, and start to see what's modified. The cool part on the modified is if I click an object, it's going to tell you, oh, the shape of this object has changed. They could have added the door, the height could have changed, who knows. But then if you zoom in on it, you can actually click between the old version versus the new. So the shape didn't move. That's weird. It says shape changed. Well, it's an angled wall, so it got longer. Usually it'll start telling you, oh, this wall has moved by 2 feet or something like that. So you can start scrolling through, clicking on things, and then those things will start telling you, oh, here's what happened. Here's where it was there. Here's where it is in here. Oh, this moved by 0.03 feet. Somebody moved it 1/4 of an inch. So great little tool. Again, this is model compare. It's all free. You can start seeing this all, what's going on in there. If you wanted to go see what was deleted, modified, removed, whatever, again, same beautiful interface. Now I can see what they deleted. Did I have anything hosted to that? If I'm MEP, what's going to happen there? Or, gee, what did they add to me inside of here? If you get to some files and it says there's way too much to go, theoretically, they got filters down here based on discipline. So I can come down and be like, oh, I only want to see the architectural objects. So I can hide structural changes. Again, it's their best guess on disciplines, or you can start doing filters based on the Revit categories. So great little tool. I use this tool all the time. Even works with sheets now. It's now starting to tell you, oh, gee, this dimension has moved. Previously, the model compare did not work on published sheets, but now it's actually getting into published sheets as well. So just want to say, if you're in BIM 360, since a lot of that came up today, here's some of the great tools you guys can start looking at that you have available to you if you're already using BIM 360. So with that said, it's the top of the hour. It means it's time for us to finish. So like I said, I think there were some issues with the link. So if anybody you know is getting inside of here, or you need to do, or anybody you want to pass this on to, please share Revit Radio with it. As more questions we get, the better we all learn from this. And other than that, I appreciate everybody showing up and asking all those questions. So thanks. Have a good new year. Oh, and by the way, the next one I'm going to probably move not from the 3rd, since this is the day after the observed holiday. So the observed holiday for New Year's is on Monday. I don't think everybody wants to come here on Tuesday. So we're going to push Revit Radio. We did this for Civil Chat as well. 1 week to the following week, which I think will be the 10th. So should you see it? You should get,
isn't that what everybody wants for the holidays? Is a lovely Revit Radio present?
Yeah, I just have a feeling people might still be on vacation and not that many people show up. Of course, I don't know if it could be worse than this one. I might have even fewer people since the link was broken. But all right, thanks everyone.
Bye guys.
Spread the word. I will see you all next year.